and I'll act based on the assumption that the cloud recording has begun. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third lesson of the iBug Introductory Mac Training course. Today is Tuesday, March 15th, and we will be continuing with more on getting VoiceOver and accessibility settings customized. First, I'll just remind you to check out our website, ibugtoday.org, and our social media. The things we have coming up this week are the movie on Friday at 8 p.m. with a pre-movie discussion. And actually, we have Android Insight tomorrow evening from 7 to 8:30 on Zoom. So if you have any questions about your Android devices and even the Amazon devices with that little helpful intelligent assistant count, because they run Android. So any and all questions, welcome. And that's pretty much it. I think the name of the movie for this week is Coach Carter. Either way, it's been sent to the email list. And without further ado, unless Herbie can think of any other pressing announcements, we will get started. So let's go ahead and get started, and then I think Herbie may have a comment or two about the study session. We'll do that at the end. Today, we are going to cover more things in system preferences, adjusting the behavior of function keys, and exploring some of the settings in the accessibility category. I'll then turn our focus to the VoiceOver utility, highlight some things there. The VoiceOver utility is basically the default way, or it's the app for customizing everything about VoiceOver. And then if there is some time after that, we will go into Siri and dictation. And hopefully it sounds like Chris had a chance to do the Siri and at least listen to the Siri podcast. I didn't really have anything on dictation, and that will be a bit more thorough than I am able to go through. I'm going to share.
You have started computer participants.
Okay. As a review from last time, we can go to System Preferences via the dock and then bring up all of the system preference categories, still staying on the dock in System Preferences, or on the System Preferences icon. So if I press VOD, VO stands for VoiceOver, so Control and Option, or Caps Lock. I'll do that now.
Dock. Mail. Open. 3 of 26.
Oops, mail is
Actions
open.
available.
Oh well. Now I'll type SY for System Preferences.
System Preferences. 4 of 26.
And if I didn't want
Actions
to type that, I guess mail was 3. I could have just pressed right arrow. Sometimes I do forget the position of things on my dock or other places. So for me, sometimes using the letters is quicker, so I don't have to remember, okay, dock or preferences comes before or after mail. I never remember those things. Now I'm going to press the context menu command, which is VO-Shift-M.
Menu. 38 items.
And we're going to go to keyboard. So I'll press the letter K. Again, you may want to explore some of these preferences later at your convenience. Particularly in the dock, you can customize what appears in your menu extras. I know that's kind of weird. And customize how the time is displayed. There's lots of things to check out in Apple ID. There's just a whole bunch of things, but we can't go through all of those. We're going to press Enter on keyboard.
Zoom us. System dialog. You are sharing computer sound. Stop share button.
Okay, I know I'm sharing.
Stop share.
All right, well, I probably was spending too much time yakking. So let's do this again. We're already on System Preferences. I'm going to press VO-Shift-M.
Menu, 38 items.
K,
keyboard.
and
System
Enter.
Preferences, 4 of 20. Zoom us. System search text field. Blank.
As
You
with
are
last
currently-
time, we were taken into that unhelpful search field. I'm going to uninteract. There has been a Mac update since the last time we met, macOS 12.3. And so far, my updating experience went smoothly. There's no additional bugs I'm aware of aside from this one where it just takes you into this search field where we don't need to be. So I'm going to uninteract with VO Shift up arrow.
Out of toolbar.
And now I'm going to press VO right.
Keyboard. Keyboard selected tab 1 of 5. You are currently on a selected tab 1 of 5.
Okay, it tells us where we are at. So there are things in system preferences known as panes. Keyboard is a pane, accessibility is a pane, P-A-N-E, not P-A-I-N, although I know sometimes they really can be a pain. But anyway, they are what are called panes, but sometimes in those panes you have separate categories of options that are related. Or different components. So in keyboard, we have keyboard, which is where we're going to stay.
Text tab 2 of 5.
Text deals with text replacement. It also, you can use it to control whether autocorrect is on or off by default.
Shortcuts tab 3 of 5.
In shortcuts, you can create some of your own shortcuts for items in the menu bar that maybe don't have shortcuts or some other aspects of using just Mac commands.
Input sources tab 4 of 5.
Input sources, I believe, has to do with keyboards.
Dictation tab 5 of 5.
And time permitting, at the end of the lesson, we will come here to enable dictation. It's just a simple matter of going in here and then checking the box for allow dictation.
Key repeat. You are currently on a text element.
But now we are on the options pertaining to the keyboard tab. And I'm just going to VO right through here somewhat quickly until we get to the items dealing with first the touch bar and then the F keys.
Delay until repeat. 85.7%, 40%, off, slow, fast, long, short. Adjust keyboard right, turn keyboard back 5 seconds of inactive touch bar shows.
Touch
You are
bar
currently on a text
shows.
element.
The touch bar is again that horizontal strip that is above the number row on certain Macs from I think 2015 to 2019, like the MacBook Pros in particular. Seems like many of you probably don't have to worry about it, but basically these options control what happens when you slide your finger along the touch bar or when you hold down the FN key and then slide your finger along the touch bar.
F1, F2, etc. keys. Pop-up button. You are currently on a pop-up button. To display a list of options, press Control, Option, Space.
And I'll just show you what those options are. We can press VO space.
Menu, 5 items. Quick actions. You are currently on spaces. You are currently on a menu item. To choose this menu item, press Control, Option, Space. To close this menu, press Escape.
And that's the typical thing we get when we're inside of menus.
App controls. You are currently on.
I believe the default option for the touch bar is App Controls. Or the expanded control strip. I can't remember because I've always changed it. So basically, when you're sliding your finger along the touch bar and VoiceOver announces things, do you want it to announce brightness down, brightness up, and then things volume down, volume up? Or as you're sliding your finger along, do you want to hear the F1 through F12 keys? I don't want to change what I already have set, so I'm going to press Escape.
Closing menu. F1, F2, etc. keys. Pop-up button.
And VO right.
Press FN key 2. Start dictation. Press FN twice. Pop-up button.
You control
you are currently on a pop-up.
Okay. Happens when you press the FN key twice for dictation. Pressing it twice starts dictation and once stops dictation.
Menu, 4 items. Check mark. Start dictation. Press F.
So I also just pressed space to get into this menu. VO space or space. Doesn't matter too much.
Do nothing. Change input source. Show emoji and symbols.
So those are some things that can be done when you press the FN key
Closing
twice.
menu. Press and hold FN key 2. Show control strip. Pop-up button.
So when you press the FN key and you slide your fingers along, that's when you would hear the control strip if this option is selected. But now for those of you who actually have the physical F1 through F12 keys, thank goodness, we'll go on to the option that's more relevant.
Use F1, F2, etc. keys as standard function keys on external keyboards. Checked checkbox.
Mine says on external keyboards because that's what I happen to be using, but yours would probably just say use F1, F2, etc. keys as standard function keys. If you want to have an easier time with VoiceOver commands, those that I mentioned last week, like opening the app chooser and the window chooser, you want these to be checked. And that way you do not have to hold down the FN key while trying to find VO and F1 or F2. Or today we'll talk about the VoiceOver utility, and that's VO F8. Excuse me, have the hiccups. So you can choose
Use F1, F2, etc. keys as standard function keys on external keyboards. Checked check.
To use them as standard function keys. In other words, it controls the software. If the box is unchecked, then by default, pressing those F1 through F12 keys by themselves would control things like brightness, music playback, and volume. So the choice is yours, and we already in our previous, before class, had a little talk about the settings. So
when this option is selected, press the FN key to use the special features printed on each key.
Yeah.
You are currently on a text element.
There we go. That's basically what I said. Anyway, you'll have to figure out what works best for you in regard to the function keys. Now I want to go into accessibility settings. And rather than go all the way back to the dock, well, it's not really all the way back, but we want to learn how to navigate within system preferences. The easiest thing I think to do is press Command left bracket. That is for the back button. You could technically go up to the toolbar and look for back or show all, but you'll find that when we are using VoiceOver and Mac commands, both, that most of the time you can get away without using the toolbar. If you want to learn the keyboard shortcuts, and I do forget many of them. Earlier, somebody was asking about the mailbox list, and I forgot that what exactly the command was, Command Shift M, Command Option M, but the menu bar allows us to hear what those shortcuts are that are associated with the commands. And just to demonstrate, I'll press VOM.
Menu bar, Apple.
And V for
You
view.
are current view.
Down
You
arrow.
are currently view, menu, 42 items. Back,
wow.
Command, left bracket.
Okay, I think
currently
the
on
view also shows some of these other preference categories. I didn't realize that before. But anyway,
forward,
let's just see.
show, customize, checkmark, organize out, search, command, accessibility.
Oh, it does.
You are currently on
wow. Okay.
search,
I
organize
learn
out,
something new every time. Maybe I knew that to some degree, but anyway,
checkmark, customize,
that
ellipsis.
is one way then to get to things. I did not see that this morning.
Show all preference
When
forward,
I was practicing,
back,
I actually
command,
do
left
practice, believe it or not. So I'm going to press Enter on back, or you could also press VO space, or if you want to use the keyboard, just Command left bracket. The left bracket is the key immediately to the right of the letter P. And like I said, the menu bar, you can go to it, and it just helps you learn what keys are associated with what commands.
Back. You are currently on a toolbar. To interact with the items on this toolbar, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow.
Okay, and then it told us that we are on a toolbar. We don't want the toolbar. I'm going to show you my preferred way of getting around system preferences. You could tab a bunch of times. You could also press VO right arrow a bunch of times and then interact and press VO right some more times, but I'm just going to show you one way, and I will re-emphasize this tonight, and that is pressing VOJ. VOJ is the VoiceOver jump command. In the documentation, I think it's called jump to linked item, but that is a great way to hide what this thing truly can do, because you can use VOJ to go from things like your toolbar to your main app sections and pages, and documents in Word, you can jump from the formatter to the document text. In Mail, you can actually use it to jump from your messages list to your mailbox list. So instead of that VO left and right, a few times, you can do VOJ. VOJ automatically interacts your cursor in an area. So often, most places whenever you use it, you'll have to uninteract when you want to be done in that particular area. But in system preferences, we don't need to worry about that too much. Basically, what you do, you come into system preferences, you come from another category or not, and as soon as you're in here, you press VOJ.
In Preference panes, scroll area. 33 items, General button. You are currently on a button inside of a scroll area. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space. To stop interacting with this scroll area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
Okay, but that doesn't really help us because what we want to do is we want to get to not keyboard accessibility. And it is possible to use first letter navigation. If I try to use it here, though, sometimes it will place my cursor in the search box. So just to avoid that, I press VO right arrow once.
Desktop and screensaver button.
And you could keep pressing VO right to view all these different preference panes to go forward, VO left to go back. But I'm going to press A for accessibility and press VO
you are currently
space.
On a loading accessibility window. Toolbar.
And then
you
we're
are
going
currently
to
on
VO
a toolbar.
right.
Accessibility. Accessibility features table. Overview. Selected.
Okay, what I'm going to go to, and there are so many things here. I am going to go
VoiceOver.
to
Zoom. Display.
Display, that's one of them. There are a couple of settings that I enable on iOS and that I think could also be helpful on the
Display.
Mac.
Selected tab.
There are other settings for those of you who are still using your Vision with VoiceOver, although I recommend just trying VoiceOver. There definitely are things in Display that can help. So give those a look if you want to try to make your viewing experience easier.
Pointer tab. Color filters tab. Invert colors unchecked. Classic invert. Reduce motion checked. Check.
The first thing is reduce motion. That may make trackpad navigation a little bit less jumpy. I know that it makes the icons wobble and animations wobble a little bit less on the screen.
Increase contrast. Reduce transparency checked. Checkbox.
And reduce transparency is also one of those iOS accessibility settings that I have been told about, and it may be helpful on the Mac as well. Again, there's lots of other things here that may help you. Okay, now to get back to the table, I'm going to press VO Home.
Toolbar.
And that takes me to the toolbar, so I'm going to press VO right.
Accessibility features table. Display.
And the other thing I wanted to make you aware of, we'll just go through some of the categories that are here.
Spoken content.
Notice, now it did say
accessibility. Accessibility features table. Spoken content. Selected. You are currently on a table. To enter this table, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow.
Okay, it says we're on a table. We don't need to interact first because each of these things is on a single line. There's no nesting and items within items in this table, so it's really not necessary to interact here. How would you know that? Just by getting around here a few times, trying things. But many tables on the Mac, just be aware that many tables on the Mac are often just simple lists.
Audio, RTT. Captions, voice control.
Voice control is another component of dictation we won't really have a chance to talk about, but it basically allows you to give your Mac commands. There are even more commands for text editing beyond what dictation can provide. But voice control is also available on iOS and is really more for those who can't type. Some things work fine with VoiceOver, some things don't, but it is an option available if you need it.
Keyboard. Pointer control, switch control, Siri.
You can enable things like type to Siri. There's also some other things you can do.
Shortcut.
You can customize the accessibility shortcut,
Siri,
but I'm just going to quickly go back to descriptions. Actually, I could type D.
Display.
actually DE.
Descriptions.
And now VO Write.
Audio descriptions provide a spoken description of visual content in media. Play audio descriptions when available. Checked checkbox.
If you rely on audio description, particularly for movies and TV shows, especially those you download or stream from the TV app, I was about to say iTunes, but it's actually TV, you may want this box to be checked. It's not a hugely important accessibility setting, but it is there if you need it. Okay, I'm now going to close the system preferences for now, and we will focus on the VoiceOver utility. To quit an app, I can press Command Q.
Finder. Desktop. ACB alias.
Okay, the default shortcut for the VoiceOver utility is VOF8. You could also tell Siri to open it. Or another thing you can do is what's called Spotlight. That allows you basically to type in any app name, a file name, you can ask for a definition, ask your Mac to calculate a problem. Spotlight is kind of like the start menu in Windows 10. You can, pretty much type anything and find it. So we could press VOF8, but I just want to demonstrate Spotlight, which is Command Space.
Spotlight. Spotlight search window. Search text.
And here I'll type in V O
no
I C. And it may have brought up the VoiceOver utility.
VoiceOver utility app. Text inserted.
Okay, and if I press Enter.
Finder. ACB VoiceOver utility. VoiceOver utility window. Utility categories table. General.
Okay,
Selected
there are several categories in this table. We won't be able to talk about all of them, but the first is General. And there are a couple things here to be aware of.
Speak the following greeting after login. Welcome to macOS. VoiceOver is on. Content selected. Greeting.
You can change that to whatever you want.
Display welcome dialog when VoiceOver starts. Unchecked. Checkbox.
The welcome dialog is that voice that says welcome to VoiceOver. If you already know how to use VoiceOver, press the V key now. And that by default gets unchecked after VoiceOver has been launched for the first time.
Keys to use as the VoiceOver modifier. You are currently on a
if you want to change what keys are used for the VoiceOver modifier, if you can't stand using caps lock for VoiceOver, or you really don't want to have to use Control and Option, you may adjust that.
Control
here.
Option or caps lock. Keys to use as the VoiceOver modifier. Pop-up button.
You can just press space or VO
menu,
space.
Control Option, Control caps lock.
And
Checkmark.
If you, though, like me, sometimes find it convenient to use both,
Closing.
Then I would just leave it at both.
Portable preferences off. Image. Portable preferences off. Setup button. Portable preferences let you take your VoiceOver preferences with you wherever you go. You are currently...
So maybe you work on several different Macs, or maybe you visit a friend, whatever. Or maybe, like me, you're trying to demonstrate VoiceOver. You set it to basic or default settings, but you want to quickly load your preferences. Well, these portable preferences allow you to do that when they have been, once they've been downloaded, saved to the drive, and it's reconnected to your Mac or another Mac. The Mac VoiceOver will actually say, do you want to use these preferences? And you'll be good to go.
Allow VoiceOver to be controlled with Apple Script. Checked. Checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space.
Okay, I thought maybe we'd actually get some help text about what this option is. If you want to use certain commands with VoiceOver, typically the keyboard commander commands to hear the time of day, for instance, or the number of unread mail messages. Those rely on something called Apple Script, which basically had some lines in it, some of which say, tell VoiceOver to do this, if VoiceOver this, then that. It's basically part of Apple programming language, and for whatever reason, there are certain things that VoiceOver has to work with in conjunction with the Apple Script. So it can be useful to have that checked. If it is unchecked, you may be prompted to enter your password or use your Apple Watch or fingerprint to allow it to work.
Help button. You are currently...
And there we are at the end of general. I am now going to go back to this table. I'm going to press VO Home. By the way, VO Home is VO and then FN and left arrow. If your keyboard does not have the 6-pack of keys with the home and page up and end and page down.
Toolbar. VoiceOver utility. Utility categories table. General. Select.
And I will now press down arrow.
Verbosity.
Okay, verbosity is basically what info VoiceOver speaks, how, and when. It's basically the who, what, where, when, why. I could never say all that exactly the same way each time, but you basically control, what info VoiceOver gives to you and how it provides that info. And there are a number of categories. I'm just going to, speaking of using the time script.
1925.
Okay. I need to keep moving along, so let's
Speech
go into...
selected tab, 1 of 5.
I don't want us to spend too much time in speech. Basically, the thing you can do is set it to low, medium, or high. It will probably be at low by default. And that controls how a bunch of things are announced, like buttons and checkboxes, and whether that's spoken first or selected as spoken first. A lot of little things that we probably don't need to mess with most of the time. But you can configure how each of the items are announced and all that.
Braille tab, 2 of 5.
Braille has the same options as speech.
Text tab, 3 of 5.
Text, I will show you some things here. Many of these we will also find when we do text edit and access the VoiceOver verbosity rotor. But for now, let's just view
selected text tab,
what we have in the text category.
Announcements tab, hints tab, punctuation, some, punctuation, pop-up button.
Punctuation on the Mac is either some, all, or none. There used to be a most category, which was very helpful, but they took that away. In its place, you can create your own
menu,
punctuation
5
groups.
items.
Sorry, I didn't
check
mean to go
mark.
into that menu. So in its place, you can create punctuation groups. I find that process to be more complicated than I really wanted to get into, so I don't use it. But you can choose some, none, or all.
Repeated punctuation. You are currently on it first 3 times. Repeated punctuation, pop-up button. Choose how to speak repeated punctuation.
All right, yep. So when you have a series of asterisks or underlines or whatever, will it read all of those or just the first 3?
While typing, speak. Characters and words. While typing, speak, pop-up button.
Okay, I actually like to set mine to words. So we'll go into this menu by pressing VO space.
Menu, 4 items.
Or space,
check
it
mark.
doesn't matter. Earlier, I'd accidentally pressed the up arrow key and that took me into the menu. So if you find that VO space works most of the time for you, you can use that. If you prefer space, just know some of the other alternatives in case your preferred way doesn't work.
Nothing. Characters. Words.
All right, so I'm going to have mine choose words. I'll press enter.
Closing menu.
And
Words.
VO right.
When moving the cursor. Speak text, the cursor passes. When moving the cursor, pop-up button.
You can set it to speak text to the right of the cursor, but speaking text the cursor passes is like how VoiceOver speaks on iOS. And we'll talk more about that cursor behavior in text edit.
When text attributes change, do nothing. When text attributes change, pop-up button. Choose how to announce style attributes in spoken text.
Most of the time, you don't really want to have style attributes announced unless you are proofreading your work.
When encountering a misspelled word, speak attributes. When encountering a misspelled word, pop-up button.
Just so you know, some of these other choices, they are pretty much the same in all of these options.
Menu, 4 items. Change pitch. Do nothing. Play tone.
So those are your
Closing
options, whether it's for a
menu.
word or for attributes.
When encountering a link/attachment, speak. When encountering a link/attachment, pop-up button. Choose how to announce links and attachments.
I've set mine just sometimes to make a noise for links, just so, because sometimes to minimize the speech that VoiceOver makes can be convenient.
Read numbers as words. Read numbers as pop-up button.
You only have words or digits available.
When reading a capital letter, change pitch. When reading a capital letter, pop-up button.
So one thing it doesn't say is that it raises the pitch. I can't stand when a screen reader raises its pitch to speak capital letters. Unfortunately, we can change that behavior. I'll press space.
Menu, 4 items, play tone, speak cap.
I
You are
prefer
currently
it to speak cap, and so that's what I will select by pressing enter.
closing menu. When deleting text, change pitch. When deleting text, pop-up button.
And when deleting text, though, it does use a lower pitch. I don't know if the manual or anywhere says that. I just kind of learned that from using VoiceOver, and so I don't mind if it uses its lower pitch.
Append phonetic pronunciation to single characters unchecked, checkbox.
This option could be helpful, except that there's not really a delay in between when it says a character and when it gives the phonetic pronunciation. So I find that more of a distraction.
Help button.
And then we're done with text. I now want to go back up to announcements. And rather than press VO home, VO right arrow a bunch of times, there are a few things that can make our process a little bit easier or more efficient. One of them is item chooser, which is basically a way where VoiceOver gathers all the elements on screen that you can possibly do anything with, puts them in a list, and then you can either type to filter that list or arrow through the list. I'll bring up item chooser with VOI, Control Option I or Caps Lock I.
Item chooser menu, 47 items.
And we have 47 items, so I could down arrow.
Empty scroll area. Utility categories table.
But that would take me a while, so I'm just simply going to type A.
35 items. Activities.
N.
5 items. Announcements tab. 4 of 5.
There we go. It says Announcements tab. If I press Enter,
Announcements tab. 4 of 5.
it takes my
You are
cursor
currently on
to that option. If I press VO space,
selected Announcements tab. 4 of 5.
I get to select that option. Many things in announcements will pertain more if you are trying to use a mouse or magnification, whatever, with VoiceOver, but there is one particular item that is, I find, important.
Hints tab. Announce when mouse cursor enters a window. Unchecked. Announce when a modifier key is pressed. Unchecked. Checkbox.
That could be useful to announce when a modifier key is pressed, particularly if you're still trying to get accustomed to the positions of Command, Option, and Control. That's not the item I wanted to draw our attention to, though.
Announce when the caps lock key is pressed. Checked. Checkbox. Speak header when navigating across a table row. Checked. Checkbox. Automatically speak text in dialog boxes. Checked. Speak zoom magnification changes. Unchecked. Speak VoiceOver cursor magnification changes. When status text changes under VoiceOver cursor. Play tone. When progress indicator changes under VoiceOver cursor. Play tone. When number of rows change under VoiceOver cursor. Do nothing. When number of rows.
You might find that helpful, but sometimes VoiceOver will constantly announce one row added once, so that setting can be nice to just turn off, and it is off by default.
When system dialogs are displayed. Play tone. When system dialogs are displayed, pop up.
Okay, when system dialogs are displayed. When I came across this a year or so ago, I think it was introduced in Big Sur, I had an aha moment because, oh, that's why my Mac is making some strange noises. There are these system dialogues. And sometimes, so I will set it to
speak and play tone.
Speak and play tone.
You are currently on a menu item. To choose this menu item, press Control, Option, Space. To close this menu, press Escape. Closing menu.
So the thing with using the hints is it just makes the VoiceOver speech really delayed, but we did choose that option. And sometimes it doesn't always tell me what the system dialogue is, but at least it makes me aware that there is one. And so then I sometimes know why my Mac is making a noise. I forgot to mention that in the accessibility category of system preferences, there's an item called spoken content. That is more relevant if someone is not wanting to use VoiceOver, if they're wanting to maybe have text of emails or other things spoken out loud without actually using VoiceOver. Those things can also The spoken content can include announcements of system dialogue. So sometimes people complain that their voiceover tells them something and then they hear another voice giving that announcement. If you find anything like that annoying, have a look at spoken content and make sure that the speak announcements item is unchecked. Okay, we are done.
Speak size and position inches. Speak text under mouse after delay. Unchecked. 0. Short. Long. Help.
All right, that's the end of announcements. Finally, let's go back up to hints. I'm going to use my item chooser again. So VOI.
Item chooser menu. 47 items.
And I'm going to type HI.
2 items hints.
For
tab.
hints.
5 of 5.
Again, we could follow that, VO home and VO right a few times, or VOJ, and then uninteract and VO right. There's a lot of ways you can get to the same info. I don't expect you to memorize all of them, and I am trying to be consistent in terms of navigation, but there are so many ways to get to these items. I'm going to press enter on hints.
Hints tab, 5 of 5.
That brought our focus to the item, and then I'll press VO space.
Selected hints tab, 5 of 5.
And now let's go through here. I'm going to press VO right.
Speak instructions for using the item in the voiceover cursor. Checked checkbox. You are currently on a checkbox. To select or deselect this check.
Okay, the you are currently on a checkbox thing is the speak item instructions for using the item in the voiceover cursor. I find that these hints can be distracting. They slow voiceover down because maybe, you've closed something, or by the time, and you've closed it long before voiceover's done speaking. I recommend turning this off. Some of the instructions or navigation things I suggest might not always correspond with what the hint is saying, but you can do as you wish. I'm going to press VO space to toggle it off.
Unchecked. Speak instructions for using the item in the voiceover cursor. Checkbox.
And now if we do VO left
Hints
and then
selected
VO
tab.
right.
Speak instructions for using the item in the voiceover cursor. Unchecked. Checkbox.
It no longer says, you are currently on a checkbox or whatever it, so that has been taken away.
When an item has a help tag. Speak help. When an item has a help tag, pop-up button. Choose how to announce an item's help tag.
Choose how to announce an item's help tag is an example of a help tag, and I find those useful. So I would definitely have it speak those.
When an item has custom actions. Speak help. When an item has custom actions, pop-up button.
Custom actions are typically those things like in Control Center, Notification Center, where we pressed VO command space to bring up an additional menu.
When an item has more content. Speak help. When an item has more content, speak hints after delay.
Okay, if you choose to leave your hints on, which is definitely understandable,
0.5 seconds. Speak hints after delay slider.
You may want to increase the delay to give yourself more time to think about what the command might be. It's kind of like, giving yourself a flashcard quiz, and instead of, just quickly turning it over to the other side, well, it turns over to the other side after a few seconds. I don't know. That's a bad analogy. But we can adjust the slider by interacting.
In slider.
And we can do VO right.
1.5 seconds.
To make it go up by 0.5 increments.
16%. Value indicator.
We can also...
2.4 seconds.
I thought maybe there might be
2.9 seconds.
an
2.4
easier
seconds.
way to adjust it. But you could, I think it goes all the way up to 10 seconds. So you could just press right arrow repeatedly to get there. Or, I think that's the easiest way.
2.9 seconds. 3.4 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So you can increase that time, to give yourself more time to think of what the command you need might be.
Out of slider. Short.
And
long. Help button.
That's the end of hints. So now let's go into speech.
Toolbar. VoiceOver utility categories table. Verbosity. Selected.
And speech is in our table.
Speech.
In speech, we can download additional voices, and we can also adjust the rate and pitch and things that we did with the, whatever we called it, speech attributes rotor from last week. But we can
Voices.
do that here in the utility.
Pronunciation tab, 2 of 2.
Or you can mess about in pronunciation as I did. I've tried a few times to get VoiceOver to speak Sandhya correctly instead of saying Sandhya. That's a lot of fun. Or anything that VoiceOver mispronounces that you want to attempt to correct.
Mute speech unchecked checkbox. Customized language list table. No selection.
Here is a table where we definitely need to interact. Unfortunately, it does have a few layers.
In customized language list table. No selection. Language. Default.
Why it said no selection, I don't know, because clearly it is on one. It's called language default.
English. Voice. Ava voice pop-up button.
Here is where we can choose a different voice. I'll
Choose
press
the voice to use for
space.
menu. 26 items. Check mark. Ava, Nikki, Samantha, Susan, Tom, Vicky, English, Siri voice customize, ellipsis.
Or we can go to customize, and I'll press enter on customize.
In search dialog, search text field, blank.
We could search
Select
for
voices.
a particular voice. I could try to type in Daniel, and then we'd find it, but
Voices table. No selection.
okay. If you want to just see what voices there are.
Agnes, uncheck checkbox. Alex, uncheck checkbox.
So let's say we're on Alex, we could just we could press VO right.
Play button.
Most
Stop.
people recognize me by my voice.
Voices.
But if you want to check Alex, you would actually need to interact in the table. So a good reason to interact in a table, one is if it presents things, with layers, like a table that has a menu, or another reason is to check a box. Those are two good reasons to interact in a table.
In voices table. Alex, uncheck checkbox.
And if we want to check Alex, we can press VO space.
Checked.
I don't really want him, so I'm going to uncheck.
Unchecked. Alex compact. Allison. Check. Ava. Checked. Bruce. Uncheck. Fred. Uncheck checkbox.
So you get the idea. We could check or uncheck Fred and go all the way through here.
Junior. Uncappy.
There are lots of voices, including the old novelty voices and
Out
so
of voices
forth.
table.
But we don't have all day, so we are just going to press VO end to get to the home button. Not the home button. VOFN right arrow is VON to get to the OK button.
OK default button.
And I always forget that is a default button. So technically we could have pressed enter. Since we're here, we'll just press VO space.
Customized language list table. No selection.
And you can also, as I said, adjust the rate and different things in this table. Again, we have to interact.
In customized language list table. Voice. Ava rate. 45 rate. 44.4% rate stepper.
And here, what we want to do
Edit button.
is go, if you want to change the rate, you have to go to edit.
In dialog. Ava. Default voice pop-up button.
And we're brought up again with an area where we can choose the voice.
45. Content selected. Default rate. Edit text.
I find it easier to just type in here, so I'm going to type 60.
Selection replaced. 60. 59.6%. Default rate 60 stepper.
Now you notice that it kind of, VoiceOver was almost talking in two voices. If I use and try to adjust it in this stepper, if I interact,
stepper.
and then maybe I do VO down arrow.
58.6%.
VoiceOver is kind of talking over itself, so that's why I find it easier to just use
57.6%.
the edit box.
Out of stepper.
But you can, use the stepper, interact with VO shift down arrow, VO down or VO left to decrease the value, VO up or VO right to increase, and there you go.
58. Content selected. Default rate. Edit text.
But I'm just going to go back in here and type 45.
8.
And
45.
that's the rate.
Rate 45. 50. Content selected. Default pitch. Edit text.
And you can do all the same things with pitch, volume, and intonation.
85. 84.8%. 50. 49. Additional voice options. Collapsed disclosure triangle.
What I don't recommend is, it says additional voice options. You can expand this disclosure triangle with VO space. But then you'll get things called, well, all these different types of voices: the content voice, the message voice, the reading voice, the I don't care voice. No, that's not really a voice, but, and then you'll get VoiceOver speaking over itself, and you probably don't want to adjust those other voices. I don't know why they are there, but they are options for you. And if we stay away from them, then
OK default
the
button.
next thing we have is the OK button.
Customize language list table.
Generally, you only have OK or apply buttons, things of that sort, when you go through one of these layered things, when it's, a menu, a dialog within a table, or maybe in system preferences, you go to advanced in something, and then there'll generally be an OK. But most of the time, you can just get away with closing or quitting an app, Command Q, returning to other categories of preferences, or just going home and then to the table. So that is an overview of speech.
Toolbar.
If I now
VoiceOver utility categories
get
table.
back into this table,
Speech navigation.
navigation and web, we will actually cover in Safari.
Web sound.
Sound. This can be important.
Mute sound effects unchecked.
If you don't like how the sounds VoiceOver makes, you can mute the sound effects. That is actually different from the mute VoiceOver we encountered in speech. I don't recommend doing that, or if you do, at least have a trackpad so you can turn it on quickly.
Enable audio ducking unchecked checkbox.
I set my VoiceOver preferences back to default right before I came on to Zoom. But one thing I had to adjust right away, which drives me crazy, is audio ducking. Basically, when it's on, it will duck the sounds of other programs so you can hear VoiceOver. Well, it also ducks the VoiceOver sounds. So then my VoiceOver is constantly coming in at, a lower volume, and then it gradually increases. And it does that all the time. So I prefer to have audio ducking off. And audio ducking could be useful if you're playing media. I don't know, maybe if you're on a call, a FaceTime call, whatever. But for me, it drives me crazy. So I leave it. I make sure that checkbox is unchecked. That is the first VoiceOver setting I customize even before turning off the hints. So
enable positional audio checked checkbox.
Positional audio, particularly if you are using a headset, will let you hear where your VoiceOver cursor is relative to your position on the screen. So when I'm all the way up at the toolbar, I hear VoiceOver way off to my left, and at the help button at the very end, I hear it off to my right. So it can kind of give you, for me, since I don't really process things spatially, it's more of a cool sound effect than anything else. It's not all that useful, but some people do find it useful. I noticed today that when I was reading through emails, a lot of the text for some reason was way off to the sounding from my left ear. And I don't know why, people would do that, but whatever.
Output device. System default. Output device pop-up.
You can control the device that your VoiceOver speech comes from. This is particularly useful if you are trying to, maybe you want to play media, like some music or a movie on a big set of speakers for everybody else, but you don't want them to hear your VoiceOver. So you could have VoiceOver come through your headset. Right now,
Output system default. Output device.
Mine is set to system default so that you can actually hear my VoiceOver through Zoom.
Sennheiser SC60 for link.
But if I just wanted to play for you a song or a movie and have you not hear my VoiceOver, I would set it to actually come through my headset. And that way you'd only pick up the other sounds and not my VoiceOver. So if you ever have to share audio on Zoom, it can be worthwhile to come and take a look at VoiceOver and sounds and then output.
Closing menu, help button.
And we are done here. Let's go back up to the table with VO Home.
Toolbar, VoiceOver utility categories table.
And
Sound,
I'll down arrow.
Visuals.
Visuals are things that help you see the VoiceOver cursor. They also provide something called a caption panel. More useful if you're working with a sighted instructor or you want to physically see what VoiceOver is doing.
Commanders.
Commanders. This is a truly awesome powerhouse area because you can create your own commands if you don't want to even worry about messing with your function key behavior. If you want to, you could create a command. For instance, I've created one, right option V, that takes me into the VoiceOver utility. That's just keyboard commander. I've also created commands to raise and lower my rate and volume. But if you prefer using the trackpad, you could create trackpad commands. If you like your number pad, you could create numpad commands. So the sky's the limit when it comes to commanders. There are some guides on Applevis about how to get started, how to use them, and then otherwise you can ask me questions in Macintalk about commanders.
Braille.
Braille is another one of VoiceOver's highlights because all you need to do is put your Braille display in terminal mode. I'm using that term generally because each display has a method for doing that. And once it's in that mode and you connect it via USB, you have Braille. There's no installation of drivers. Sometimes you don't even need to restart VoiceOver. Sometimes you do. And then also if you want to add a display via Bluetooth, you can come into Braille to do that. Although I have learned, at least in iOS, that some displays these days, you don't even need to go into the Braille section to add them. You can just add them as a regular Bluetooth device. So anyway, you would consult your displays your guide, but you can customize. You can create your own Braille display commands within limits. You can choose the output tables and how things are laid out, all that good stuff in Braille.
Activities.
So that basically allows you to define a set of behaviors or preferences that you might want to apply to a particular app. Or if it's not set for an app, something that you can just toggle on. Maybe you want to create a proofreading activity. You are working in documents, you use TextEdit, Pages, Word, you use all of it. Or maybe you write lots of things in blogs online and you want to be able to hear clearly and distinctly what you're writing with all of its punctuation. So you could create an activity that uses all punctuation. The rate is slowed down. The font attributes are announced. There's been some discussion on this Mac list about a VoiceOver navigation preference called the mouse cursor and whether VoiceOver follows it. And so you might want to create where on some websites, so that activities can be as customizable, as broad, as whatever, include as little or as much as you want. That could be a lot of these categories we could, delve into and have lessons in themselves, but there's just not time.
VoiceOver recognition.
Finally, we have VoiceOver recognition. In my opinion, VoiceOver recognition in iOS is much more useful, but you can use it on the Mac.
Using on-device intelligence, your Mac will automatically improve the accessibility of images. Voice-over recognition should not be relied upon in circumstances where you could be harmed or injured, in high-risk situations, for navigation, or for the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition. Dimmed. Image descriptions checked checkbox.
And mine is checked.
Enabling this will trigger data download needed to improve image recognition.
All right, so yeah, it'll just download. It's not really that much of a download. You check it, and then you'll be good to go. So I couldn't remember the command for image descriptions. I thought I knew it, but what I did today, I went to Commands Help, VOHH, began typing in some of the word image, and then pressed down arrow, and was reminded that I was right, that it is VO-Shift-L. So when you are on an image on a website, you can use it. Sometimes, though, I find I'll get the message, oh, no description has been provided or whatever. So it can be a little bit not all that helpful.
Your Mac will speak descriptions of images in apps and on the web.
All right, and that is the VoiceOver utility.
1954.
Okay, so another
Finder.
really important accessibility setting I forgot to show you which is not even in accessibility, is configuring VoiceOver at logon, to start at logon. I've seen a thread on one of these Mac email lists about that topic, so let's go to System Preferences.
System Preferences, 4 of 26.
And do SY.
System Preferences, 4 of 26.
Oh, we were already there. And I'm going to press Enter.
Finder. System Preferences. System Preferences, window. Toolbar.
One thing you can do, so another, to quickly find something is the VoiceOver find. So if I begin typing users or USE,
Enter search text.
because I want to get to users and groups. If I type USE,
Users and Groups button.
and there we go, I found it. So I can press VO space. And unfortunately, we're going
Users
to be
and
going
groups.
into another, layered thing.
Users, Groups and Login Options list. One item selected.
Well, not too much. Actually, okay, so we're in this table, and I want to down arrow once to Login Options.
Login Options, Group, 5 of 5.
And now I will VO right.
Automatic Login. Off. Automatic Login, dimmed.
So basically, that's dimmed.
Display login window as. List of users, dimmed. Radio button.
There's a whole bunch of dimmed things, and the reason they're dimmed is because there's this lock at the end.
Help button. Click the log to make changes button.
I basically pressed VO end or VOFN right arrow to get there, and then VO left arrow to find it because we were on help, and then I press VO left. And so if I press VO space.
Help button in dialog. System preferences. System preferences. System preference.
All right, and so here it's wanting me to, earlier it was letting me use my watch to unlock, but, oh, fine. All right, it wants me to use my password. It's just trying the fingerprint.
Enter your Chanel Allen. Password, secure edit text.
There we go. And sometimes this is one area where it doesn't always give you the clicks as you're entering your password.
Help button. Help button.
Now it is
dialog.
Unlocked. Okay, so I'm going to quickly do my item chooser to find accessibility options.
4 items accessibility options button.
And press enter to get there.
Accessibility options.
If you would have continually pressed VO left about 5 or 6 times, you would have gotten to accessibility options. This was my little shortcut.
In dialog table. No selection. These accessibility items will automatically be enabled in the login window. Turning off a feature disables that feature for all users of the login window but can be turned back on by the accessibility shortcut menu, star. By turning on a feature, your own configurations will be used for all users of the login window.
All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. It didn't tell us what item was selected, so if I just press down arrow.
VoiceOver checked checkbox.
Okay, VoiceOver is checked. Now, if for some reason it's not checked, since this is an item that needs to be checked and it's in a table, which again is really more like a list, but in order to check something, in order to act upon an item in a table, you need to interact. So we'll do that.
In table. Row 1 of 7. VoiceOver checked checkbox.
I'll press VO space to toggle it on. Or, well, I'll uncheck it.
Unchecked.
And then VO space.
Checked.
And there you go. That's how you uncheck and check a checkbox is VO space. It's also, as I was demonstrating earlier, how you can go into a menu, a pop-up menu. Sometimes you can use space to do those actions as well. But VO space will consistently announce that you've checked the box, will consistently announce that you've gone into the menu. Okay, that option is done. And in here, because we went into this area, a system preference pane, and then into, a category there, and then into another thing, we have to find the OK button.
Out of table.
Or in this case, it's apply. So I'm uninteracting with the table.
Turning off a feature disables that feed cancel button. Apply button.
We'll press VO space.
No notifications available. Accessibility options button.
And there we go. We are done with accessibility. We are still, we were in the users and groups area, but dealing with accessibility options. So that can be a little confusing. So now I will just quickly show you where you can go turn on
users
Siri.
And groups window. Toolbar. In preference desktop and screensaver button.
If I do SI for Siri, I basically did VOJ, and then I did VO right to get into my main preference area. If I type SI for Siri,
Siri button.
and I press VO space.
Loading Siri window. Toolbar. Siri. Pref pane splash image. Siri. Enable Ask Siri checked checkbox.
When David Woodbridge did his demo, I think that Enable Ask Siri was at the end. Here it is at the beginning.
Siri helps you get things. Listen for Hey Siri on headphones. Unchecked checkbox.
My Mac doesn't support the Hey Siri capability, so it can only do that in headphones.
Keyboard shortcut. Press FN. Function. Space. Pop-up button.
Okay, what I wanted to get to, keyboard shortcut. The default is actually to hold Command space, but sometimes that can conflict with Spotlight. So I recommend
6 items.
going
Control
in this
space.
menu. I just added Control space this morning.
Customize. Off. Hold Command space. Hold Option space. Check mark. Press FN.
And those are your options.
Closing the
So
language. English. United States.
that's the language you speak to Siri in.
Voice variety. British. Pop-up button.
And so then we have the voice variety. If I
Menu. 6 items. Check mark. British. Australia. American.
press up arrow to get back to American.
Closing
Hi,
menu.
I'm Siri.
American.
Choose the voice you'd
Pop-up
like me to
button.
use.
Siri voice. Table. In table. Voice 2.
And if
Selected.
you interact in the table and then go to these different voices,
Hi,
Voice one.
I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
I don't actually like any of these. I prefer my British, thank you very much, but you get the idea.
Out of tape. Siri voice.
And so then you
Table.
can
Voice feeds
just,
on selected radio.
voice feedback makes it so whenever you speak to Siri, she will always respond verbally. She will also pop up these snippets with additional information, but her initial response will be verbal.
Off. Radio button. Siri history. Delete Siri in dictation history button.
You can delete. That is pretty self-explanatory.
Show Siri in menu bar. Checked checkbox.
And you can show Siri in the menu bar. Okay, that is it for
20.
Siri.
01.
Now let's just quickly, if I go to keyboard
Back.
real quick.
Siri window in preference pane. Desktop and screensaver button. Keyboard button.
I
Loading
did.
keyboard.
So I basically did VOJ to get to there, and then VO right arrow, K for keyboard.
Keyboard. Keyboard. Selected text.
And
Tab.
if you
Shortcuts.
want
Tab.
to
Input source. Dictation. Tab. Selected dictation. Tab.
change the items for dictation, you press VO space on the dictation tab.
Use dictation wherever you can type text. To dictation. On selected radio button. 1 of 2.
If it's
Off radio button.
yours may say off,
2 of
and
2.
then you want to go and choose on, and it might give you some info about giving all your credit card info. No, you'll just have to, confirm that you want to turn it on.
Sennheiser SC60 for link menu button.
And you will want to choose a device that you use for dictation,
Menu.
whether it's
4 item check mark. Automatic internal microphone.
the internal microphone or the headset that you
Closing
have plugged in. One thing, dictation is greatly improved when you do use a headset. And I always struggle with dictation because I never know exactly what I want to say. But the more you know of what you want to say and the more clearly you can speak, the easier it will be for you to actually dictate and have it inputted what you intended to say. That being said, editing or proofreading what you type is always a must.
Language. English. United States.
You can
language,
configure the
pop-up,
language it
shortcut,
understands.
press FN. Function. Key twice. Shortcut.
And you can change the shortcut. So that's an overview.
Finder.
What things I actually ask Siri to do? Well, not much. You can do the very basic. So I can either press my FN space. You could go to Siri by going to the menu extras with VOMM.
Menu extra. Mar 15. Siri.
And so I basically did a VO end and then VO left to get to Siri, and I could press VO space and that would turn it on. Hello, what's the time? Or not.
Mar 50. Siri.
What's the weather?
Application. Siri has no windows.
Well, you talked about actually speaking. Okay. What I use Siri most for is opening up apps. You could tell her, for instance, open accessibility settings.
System preferences. Loading accessibility window.
And that would
Toolbar.
save you a few steps. You could also open the VoiceOver utility.
System preferences. VoiceOver utility. VoiceOver utility.
You can also, like on your other devices, ask her questions. We could tell her, play the Applevis podcast.
Okay, the Apple Pie podcast now playing.
No, that's not quite what we had. Earlier, she did recognize Applevis.
VoiceOver podcasts. VoiceOver utility.
But, she's a bit temperamental.
Voice.
So that's just an idea. You can also try to find files with Siri. I don't always find that helpful. I asked Siri earlier about, why do we have daylight savings time? And she spoke a little bit, but then she gave me this other thing to find more info. And if you think interacting once is bad, well, when you talk to her and she gives you more info, sometimes you have to interact like 3, 4, 5 times just to get to the piece of whatever she's giving you. So it might just be easier to do your own Safari search. So Siri is useful, or maybe you want to send a quick message like, I'm on my way. That could be, so doing quick little things she could be useful
System
for.
preferences. System finder.
With all of that being
VoiceOver
said,
utility. Zoom us.
I'm going to stop my share. And now it's time for your questions. That was quite a bit of info, and we can review some of it again next week. There's also the oh yeah, Herbie, did you have anything to say about the study sessions?
All right. First of all, one thing I did want to say is audio ducking will not help with the FaceTime, so wanted to clarify that.
I don't know. I don't use it.
I know. Study session. So first of all, I did a mistype last week when I said that everybody had agreed to the time for Thursday, and that was an error on my part. I do apologize for the mistype there. Now, one thing I did also say in my first email regarding this subject is I did offer, for those of you that cannot make it, if you were to respond to me and ask for an alternative time, I would be willing to do a secondary study session for those that cannot make the one on Thursday. So if that is something you would like to do, we will not take up time during class, but use the email list to tell me when you are available if you can't make Thursday, and based on the consensus, which since most of you can make Thursday, I think it's like 2 or 3 of you that have not made the study sessions, so it should be hopefully a little bit easier to work with. And you'll still get the same questions. Nobody from the first study session give anybody the answers. And so I won't send out the recording until we've had the second study session. But we go over the focus questions. I call on you. You try your best to answer. And also people have used the opportunity to ask questions, sometimes not even related to the class. We've definitely, if you've listened to the recordings, we've definitely had our share of questions. Now, I did say there will not be an official study session next week, and that is the case, but I am willing to come on Zoom to try. Actually, I had a little bit of an inspiration earlier.
Maybe next week would work better for some people.
And I can also do a study session next week. What I originally was going to do is combine all 3 focus questions so far into one, just randomly pick from the 3 lessons and test your all's memory to see what you remember from lessons 1, 2, 3. I'm evil, aren't I? But the
reason there isn't any study session next week is because of Macintalk. And Macintalk, that requires a different link, and that's sent out in the emails. But if for some reason it's hard for some of you to meet this week, and then the majority of you would rather meet next week, because technically, it'll be 2 weeks from today that we have a lesson.
So that we'd already cleared up, though, on the last session, where there was only 1 or 2 people that actually had an actual commitment with the ACB. But most everybody else I believe so that they would actually be able to make it
Okay.
unless I am mistaken. So I did clear that up on the last week's study session.
All right.
But for those of you that can't make the first, and even if you can't make either study session, but you can make it just to, if you're able to listen in, make sure you let me know. But I definitely encourage you to do that because you are still going to hopefully learn a lot. And we go over and try to clarify points made in the class. And I hope those of you that have not made the study sessions have still listened to the recordings of the first two. So that's all I have.
Chanel, this is Chris Bell. I have a question.
Sure.
How do you get to turn on dictation as opposed to Siri? I didn't quite follow that.
Oh, that is where you press the FN key twice.
Oh, just the FN key twice, and that turns on. Okay, great. That's what I needed to know.
That's for like typing in a message or a
Yeah,
document.
I dictate a lot of it. It's on the screen in my phone, but it wasn't. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, this is Kim.
Yeah, hi, Kim.
Hey, I got a little bit lost when you were talking about, you were back in system preferences, talking about how to get VoiceOver to turn on when you're logged in.
Yeah.
And I got to go to users and groups, and then I got lost. It's like login options.
That's correct. There's kind of a table there, and I was able to get to it by down arrowing once to login options, and then I knew that we really wouldn't be able to change anything until we went to the press the lock to make changes button. That's at the very end.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we did first, and then I was kind of in a hurry, but we could have pressed via left arrow back a few times to get to accessibility options. From there, you're in another list or table, as VoiceOver calls it. You find VoiceOver and you interact, and then you check the box with VO space. And then you get out of the table and go to the apply button. So there are several steps, but yeah.
I might need more help with this.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing for the study session. And I think one of your reading assignments does cover it, but I can see about writing out a list of instructions.
This time it was just the podcast that we had to listen to.
Right, but I think I may have, I don't know. In the beginning, getting started with the VoiceOver in the first week, I think they go over that. But I can, if anybody else needs instructions, I can try to write up a little blurb. So.
Okay, well, I'll go back and look at week 1, week 2, see if I can find it.
All right. Great question, though. Yes, Bumni, was that you speaking up?
Yeah. Still on users and groups. In accessibility options, my VoiceOver is unticked. So what happens if I tick it?
Then it will come on when you log on to your Mac. So when your Mac comes up with the screen to enter your username and password when you turn it on, then VoiceOver should speak then.
Oh, I don't have to enter username and password when I turn on my system.
Okay. So then I guess that option might not be relevant to you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else?
It's Becky. Can you hear me?
Yes, Becky. Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question. What was the command that if you get a notification, I forgot that key, and you want to interact with it, interact has the word, deal with it?
All right. Well, do you remember the key command to get to the notification center?
Remember the phone.
All right. So that's where you can use commands help. Again, it might not tell you how to interact with it, but at least you can once you get to the notification center and you hear things that might give you an idea, but You would press VOO to bring up the notification center.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And the Shift O with VO is the control. Okay.
That's correct. Yep. And then sometimes if a notification is not there, it might be in system dialogues, which you can get to by pressing VOF1 twice. And then it would say in that list, system dialogues, you'd press enter. Enter on that, and then if that is there, and then it would show you what system dialogues are available.
Okay, and as far as Siri, do you use the command, the FN command space so you don't conflict with the
Yeah, I just
spotlight?
use FN space.
Oh, FN space, okay.
Yep. Technically, the default Siri command is hold command space, but I've found in the past that can sometimes get interpreted as spotlight and vice versa, so I just like to change my key.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes the more I hear a command, the better I memorize it, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, that's where, too, writing it out for yourself can really help. I mean,
Great.
When I had to learn Zoom keyboard commands for the Mac, I think I wrote them out because it was just, or whatever. Or record your own voice saying them, whatever you do, but somehow the act of writing, recording, rehearsing will help you to remember these things better. And that's why I do try to practice these things before I do the lessons. So anyway, great question. Anyone else? Well, we are technically a minute over, and I do apologize for that. If there are no other questions, then there's still always the list. You can write to me personally, and you can come to the study session or arrange with Herbie another time. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next week for Mac and Talk. That is a great place to ask your questions about Mac apps, about whatever in the class we haven't covered. There'll be a lot of people on there, experienced Mac users, not just me, and it should be fun. So,
what time is that again? Sorry.
That is at the same time as class, 7 to 8:30. Sometimes I have tried to be available on there at 6:30 to go over class content, but I don't know if I will do that this time, particularly since, well, I don't know. Because normally, I'm available at 6:30 before class, but for most of you, is it helpful to have this time, this extra time, at 6:30? Would some of you come next week if I make myself available before Mac and Talk?
Yes.
I wish that I had come in earlier. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will try to make sure. Okay. Then it'll be on a different link, but that'll be in the email, and I'll make sure that room gets opened by 6:30. So thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Chanel.
Yeah, thank you. Have a
Thank
good night,
you.
everyone. Yep.
Thank you.
I'll get the
Bye.
questions
Good
out.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.